I was trying to make a card for this, but I just figured I want to let you guys know where I got a lot of my info from, what I use the most. Most of the stuff came from the Mayo Clinic. I trust their info, their knowledge, and things above most other so-called health sites. Stay the hell off WebMD. I had a friend that used to Google everything on there and always told her she had AIDS. So yeah. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with this, and I'm reading off some notes. I'm not finished, and not all of this is just going to be you looking at me talking. I will be adding some photos in there, and trying to educate the ones that don't understand. If you have interstitial cystitis, you can share this with people that don't understand. Plus, hopefully, I can give you guys some tips that I have found that works for me. Now, I'm not a medical professional, and I will never pretend to be one. I'm hoping to get Z-Dog MD to talk about this, because it is something that I have ran across in emergency medicine. Sometimes even the doctors don't know what it is, and it's been around for a while. For a long time, it was supposedly that they thought it was a psychotic or a psychosis or a mental disorder, and there are still doctors that believe that, even though there are proof that it is done from damage to the bladder, because when they do scopes, of course, they take pictures just like when they do any other kind of scope, and you can see how angry your bladder is. So interstitial cystitis is also called painful bladder. I believe pissed off bladder is a little bit better to use there. It's a chronic pain, or it's a chronic condition causing bladder pressure, bladder pain, and sometimes, in my case, all the time, pelvic pain. The pain ranges from mild discomfort to severe. It is compared in severe cases to that of stage 4 bladder cancer, to kind of give you an idea. When somebody is at their wits' end with this disease and they're in so much pain, used to be the standard of pain management that they were given was fentanyl and morphine. Now, I would say that's changed thanks to abusers taking away from people that actually need it. Okay, so the bladder is just a hollow muscle. It stores urine. I think we all know that. It expands until it is full, and then it sends signals to your brain that it's time to urinate. Communication through the pelvic nerves. This creates the urge to urinate in most people. Now, people with IC, those kind of get a little screwed up. With interstitial cystitis, these signals get mixed up. Most feel the need to urinate more often, and with smaller volumes of urine than most people. I actually can hold a large amount of urine, but when I go to empty, I don't empty. That's been my biggest problem. Could you imagine if you feel like, oh, it's finally like you've needed to pee for like hours, and you're like dancing outside the bathroom, and you finally go in and you pee, and it feels so good. And then 5 minutes later, you feel like you gotta pee again? That's my life almost on a daily basis. It's not fun, nor something that I would wish on anybody. It does mostly affect women. I think I went over that in my other video. And can have a long-lasting impact on quality of life. Although no cure, medications and other therapies may offer relief. So far, I have had very little to no relief with anything that I've done. And sometime later in the video, after I go through all of the medical part of it, I'll talk about me and my case and what I've done. Maybe I can help you in some way. If I've tried something you haven't, maybe you can try it. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. We're all different. Each case is different. For God's sakes, I don't even know where it came from or what started it. Symptoms may vary over time, periodically, flaring in response to common triggers such as ovulation, hormones, menstruation, stress, sitting for a long period of time. I think I mentioned that in my last video as well as standing for a long period of time, exercise, and sexual activity. That can be a big strain on a relationship. Big one. Especially if they don't want to take the time to read information that either you've given them or the doctor's given them. It's like I don't know if it's that they don't care enough to want to know, or if it's just one of those things that they believe that it's just going to go away, or they think that it's just in our head because they can't see it. I don't know. I mean, I've had several surgeries due to OSCE. I'm going to give you the signs and symptoms, and excuse me, I'm going to be reading off this paper. I'll put it here so I kind of look like I'm looking at you. Pain in your pelvis. The symptoms include, now they're not all the same for everybody, but like I've got a friend, she was telling me some of her problems and how they weren't getting fixed, and I said, you have OSCE, go to the doctor. And guess what? She went to the doctor, explained everything, and they set her up for a cystoscopy and a hydrodistension, and lo and behold, I was right. She had OSCE. I've had it long enough that I can talk to women and tell them, hey, you probably want to go and mention this to your doctor, because unless you do, they're probably not going to think about it unless it's something that they specialize in. And I'm here to tell you, especially where I live, it is very hard to find a doctor that really knows OSCE and can treat it the way that it needs to be treated if you have anything at all that works for you. So symptoms can include pain in your pelvis or between the vagina and anus in women. Now, I have this symptom, and I have found that using a prescription lidocaine cream or ointment that's very, very thick work very well for this pain for me. That pain radiates down my legs and around my back, just to kind of give you an idea. So that's why I can't stand for a long period of time. On bad days, I carry a walker, one of the newer ones that's got a seat on it, because when we stop, I have a place to sit, and then I can get up and walk around. And if I'm in a lot of pain, like when it's really, really bad, I can't stand up straight, then I can lean over on the walker. So please, if you see somebody like me using a walker, don't assume that nothing's wrong with them. Just because you can't see it or they're young doesn't mean that they don't need it or that they're not sick. Pain between the scrotum and anus in men, which is the perineum. Chronic pelvic pain. First I was told that this was a disease of the bladder, then I found out later that it is actually a disease of the entire pelvic floor. Persistent urgent need to urinate. Have you ever had a urinary tract infection, bladder infection, kidney infection, anything like that? That is what they're talking about. That is what it feels like all the time. For some people. Some people don't have it all the time. I have it all the time. I suffer a lot of this a lot of the times, and it feels like a UTI, but it has no infection. So antibiotics are pointless and stupid, because then I'm going to get antibiotic resistance, and then I'm going to really be screwed when I do have an infection. And I've gotten an infection one time and blew it off as OSCE and almost got sepsis, and I was very young. See, frequent urination, often small amounts and throughout the day and night, up to 60 times a day. And I have experienced that at times. It's not that I empty small amounts. Now I can sometimes if I'm just having a really bad day, because your bladder kind of like spasms. I will urinate just tidbits here and there, and I'm in the bathroom like every 3 to 4 minutes. And then sometimes like I'll have like what seems to be good urine output, but I don't empty. So 3 to 5 minutes later, I'm back in the bathroom. It sucks. And you kind of find little things here or there that kind of help with that pain when you're at a point where you don't know what to do and it's starting to really wear down on your mental state. Pain or discomfort while the bladder fills and relieves in relief after urination. I have that daily. Kind of feels like when you have a UTI and you urinate, you know that pain that you have when you urinate. I have that every day. Pain during sexual intercourse. I have this nearly all the time, and I'm sure my husband's going to love me putting that out there, but he's pretty understanding about it. He's very sweet about it. I hope his parents don't watch this. People may experience symptom-free periods. Unfortunately, I am not one of those. When my period hits, I have an IC flare at the same time almost every single month. And one time it got so bad I passed out, had to be taken by an ambulance to the hospital just because I have IC and I started my period. That was the only two things wrong with me. That is how severe this can be. I mean, any other time, it just kind of drops me in my knees without fail, and I'm bedridden almost my entire period. It's getting now, as I'm getting a little bit older, my periods are getting shorter, so it's more for like the first 2 to 3 days. I can't really do anything, and if I do, I definitely have to take my walker out and take plenty of sitting breaks because it is unbearable to the point that, like, I cry. My husband's taken me to the hospital over it before. They've put me on morphine. They've put me on Dilaudid. It's that bad. But that's only if you get an emergency room doctor that knows what the hell they're talking about or anything about it. Otherwise, they're asking you what IC is instead of looking it up and educating themselves. All the signs and symptoms resemble those of a chronic urinary tract infection, yet no infection. I have that every single day. I'll always feel like I have a UTI. No infection. Rarely do I actually get an infection. I learned all the ways to try to keep from getting urinary tract infection, and I practice those all the time because a lot of it has to do with cleanliness, the way we wipe, the things that we use on our bodies, in the shower or whatever. We're unfortunately not like men. Our urethra is not protected as well as men's. So basically, like my gynecologist said, and I'm going to assume this is more women watching this since we're usually the ones prone to get it, treat that area like an eyeball. If you wouldn't put it in your eye, don't put it there. It is a good track of advice. I've listened to it and really cut down a whole lot. So I'm going to move on to the causes. I'm going to cut this short, and then as soon as I can, I'm going to be doing ones where you don't have to stare at me talking. So maybe it's a little bit more interesting. Causes, the exact cause is not known. It hasn't been. I've had symptoms on and off from around the time that I had my daughter, who's 14 now. I didn't get my full-fledged diagnosis until 2006. Yeah, 2006. Which I don't know if I told the story about, but I went to the doctor one day and I've been having these pains on and off. My gynecologist said it was painful bladder disorder. And so I was having that pain when I went in that day. I had been having kidney stone problems, ended up having to have surgery to remove it. But he said, "You don't look good today." And I told him, I said, "I don't feel good." And my stomach always distorts when I'm having flare-ups. And I sat back and I said, "I always swell right here." And my gynecologist said it's not my uterus, that it's my bladder. And I was going through some stuff with him, and he said, "It sounds to me like you have a classic case of interstitial cystitis. Do you know what that is?" Because at that point, it wasn't really a known thing. Now, I know a lot of women that have it, sadly. Back then, only knew 2 that had it. One, I heard crying, trying to urinate. The other was on disability from a career as an EMT because it had affected her body so bad. And what's sad, Social Security office in the United States does not recognize the disease itself as a disability. They look at your side effects from the disease itself and determines your ability to work off that. It's hard to find a job that will allow you to take random days off when you have flares, or walk in elastic waistband pants or your pajamas because you don't want shit touching your stomach because it hurts so bad. And, you know, taking a bathroom break every 3 to 4 minutes is unacceptable for just about any job. So, yeah, there's that. The exact cause is not known. Maybe many factors contribute. For instance, the person may have a defect in the protective lining of their bladder, which it's kind of like we have a protective lining in our stomach so we don't develop ulcers, but we still end up developing ulcers, eating shit food, and not taking care of ourselves. Kind of the same thing with IC. Acidic foods will bother your bladder. There is a pill now that you can take when you eat very acidic type foods or spicy foods that helps. You can get that over the counter. I take it. Other than that, you just really got to watch what you put in your body. There are certain things that make it worse. So, if you have a defect in the lining of the bladder, a leak in the lining may allow toxic substances in urine to irritate your bladder wall. And that right there is IC. Once it gets to the bladder wall, you start seeing ulcerations, bleeding. I know this is TMI, but I bleed every time I pee. Sometimes it's noticeable, sometimes it's just microscopic. It sucks. I do have a few other things going on with my kidneys that could relate to that, but it is common for IC patients to have that. And the little stupid dip test that they do to see if you have a urinary tract infection does not work on people with IC. Has to be sent off. Other unproven contributing factors include an autoimmune reaction. I was told from day one that I was diagnosed this is an autoimmune disease. Kind of goes hand in hand with a few other things. Also, hereditary could be. My mom, years and years and years ago, she was having pains kind of like what I do, and she went to the doctor, and the gynecologist said it's painful bladder disorder. We need you to come in we need you to come in 3 times a week to do bladder installations, which I have tried, and it sucks. It takes a French catheter, do it like catheter does. It's got a crazy end on it. Mix heparin, which is a blood thinner, with a shitload of liquid lidocaine, and you inject it into the catheter. Try to hold it as long as possible to get the bladder getting numb. Pee it out. Should last you a couple of days. Last time I did one, I was ready for them to take my bladder out because I had a flare-up that would not go away. Then I found out I'm allergic to latex. If you get cathed enough, that is a risk. That is a risk that they didn't tell me until I woke up one day with contact dermatitis. My daughter had made me a bunch of these rubber band bracelets on a loom, and I wore them. I thought they were cute, and that's that. And almost went into anaphylactic shock recently because I put a latex mask on. So I have catheters to thank for all of that. I was told it is not uncommon that if you are cath a lot or have to cath a lot that you develop a latex allergy. So there's the fun in that. So hereditary or infection or allergy. Now, I used to get UTIs a lot as a kid, more in my teenage years. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot, like every 2 weeks for a long time. I got one so bad one time my parents didn't understand what was going on. And so I didn't see a doctor right away. My mom actually thought that I had a yeast infection and was buying me medicine for that, and it wasn't working. And yes, I was underage drinking one night, and it was getting worse and worse and worse. I go out of town with some friends of mine. My mom knew, my dad didn't. My dad was on the road driving. My mom said, yeah, go. While I was up there, my lips were turning blue. I was passing out. I was profusely sweating. I was shivering so bad in a car trying to sleep when they were doing something, because they were just the most rudest fucking people I've ever met in my life that I thought was such sweethearts that I met through the music scene. And that's just how bad my fevers were. I was having fever dreams, hallucinating. I get home, and the next day my mom couldn't get me out of bed, couldn't get me out from under the covers because I was that cold. And so they finally got me out. They coaxed me out to take my temperature. It's almost 105. My mom was sick as well, so we just all loaded up and went to the hospital. They put us in the same room eventually after our exam, because if a woman goes into an emergency room complaining of, well, at that time it wasn't like that because I was so young, but if a woman or a teenager that admits that they're sexually active goes into an emergency room department and complains about burning on urination, you're going to have a pelvic exam. I didn't at that point in time because I wasn't sexually active, so there was no point in it. But I had a urinary tract infection that I had let go for a very long time. We're talking about 2 months, and was going sepsis, whatever. But I got on the medicine and stuff and got better. I don't remember what was wrong with my mom. Probably nothing. Love you, Mom. Nothing compared to what I was going through with that fever. But I had infections like that a lot. And now that I'm older, I don't really get infections because I take a little bit better care of myself than I did then. But I feel like I have an infection all the time. So I bought a whole bunch of those strips that you can use at home to see if you have a urinary tract infection. And then doctors tell me, oh, those aren't accurate for people with IC. We don't even use those in the office. What the fuck? I don't know. And any time that I've had an active urinary tract infection as an adult, since I pay attention now, it's usually from salmonella. But I find out that is the biggest cause of most UTIs. But you got to think that as adults, our bodies can fight off salmonella, so it's going to filter through the bloodstream. Kidneys, or, you know, like the liver, are filter. So I can see how it can get in the urinary tract. Allergy, yes. They say that it could be environmental allergies, stuff that we aren't aware of, stuff that we don't really test for. So, some people take hydroxyzine or over-the-counter like Claritin's or Attack, stuff like that every day. I am just the type of person, I take Benadryl. I live on Benadryl, but I take it for that and a few other things. So yeah, that makes me think that there's definitely allergy there. I'm going to go ahead and close this up. The next video will be on risk factors. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any questions at all about interstitial cystitis, pelvic pain, or bladder pain, just leave it below, and if I can't answer it, I will try my damnedest to get you a medical professional answer, because I am not a medical professional. I am a woman that's had IC for over half my life, and I'm over it. And I want people educated, especially these damn emergency room doctors who always seem to ask, what is IC? Because I guess they see the hair and the tattoos and assume that I am trying to get pain medicine, knowing that I could walk into any pain clinic with IC and leave with some very strong drugs. I don't do that. But again, I get profiled a lot. I don't give a shit. Just help me out when I need it. IC sucks so bad. There's so many things that can go along with it since it affects the autoimmune system and all that stuff. Anyway, thank you for watching. And I'm going to work on trying to build an intro outro to some of these channels and my main my main videos and stuff. Anyway, I hope you guys are enjoying this. I hope you find it a little bit educational. If this is your first time here, please hit subscribe, turn on the little notification bell, and you won't miss a single video. And if you look through my videos, you can see I do something different all the time, just like whatever there is. I try to record every day, and I try to upload every day. Sometimes my uploads take a little bit longer, so if I miss a day, it's not because I've not been trying, it's because it won't upload on time. Anyway, love you guys.